Y'all have been messaging me and up in my comments like, oh, please weigh in on the does kink belong at Pride controversy. And I've been like, I'm busy, I don't have time. But I saw a comment today that's just eating at my brain. I can't not talk about it. I can't concentrate on anything else. This is also going to be multiple parts. This is the comment. I'm an asexual, and as part of the Pride community, I feel we should emphasize that Pride is supposed to be about love and not sexual kinks. First of all, no shit on the commenter. That's why I scratched out their identifying information. No shit on asexuals. And no shit on younger people that might not know the history. This is what I'm here to explain. I agree, aces get a bad rap in the community. I even fall on the gray end of the spectrum myself. And I highly encourage non-ace folks to read up. There's Ace by Angela Chen or The Invisible Orientation. Those are two great places to start. The fact that aces get shit on in the community is a huge problem, but it's also got nothing to do with kink. They are two different issues. Let's get into why in part 2. Part 2 of why kink belongs at Pride. Again, no shitting on this commenter if you know who it is. I feel like this is a good jumping off point for a conversation, and there's many people that feel this way. I'm going to zero in on the part that says we should emphasize that Pride is supposed to be about love and not sexual kinks. Yes, celebrating Pride is about celebrating love, but that's not the only thing it's about celebrating. It's also about not being discriminated against based on your sexuality or your sexual expression and the right to enjoy and express your love. And if that happens to be sexual for you, great. That does not mean we are having sex at Pride. No, no, no. But we are celebrating our sexuality. Look at the letters, LGBTQIA+. Lesbian, gay, bisexual. They are all sexual orientations. So by that logic, we shouldn't be celebrating those identities either, and that's just ridiculous. Now let's get to kink. Kink is not inherently sexual. Some people intertwine sex with their kinks and some don't. In fact, there's lots of aces in the kink community because it doesn't require sex. Part 3. Part 3 of why kink should be at Pride. Not only is kink not inherently sexual, the terminology is messing us all up. What we're really celebrating at Pride is the leather community. The leather community is a subset of the BDSM community, which we also celebrate at Pride when we celebrate leather. But kink has become a catch-all name for all of that. Mostly because we can no longer say BDSM on social media without getting shut down, and no one really knows what leather is. But using the term kink can also be misleading. A lot of times when people hear kink, they think of an action as opposed to an identity. Like kink means you are spanking, you are, doing whatever. Also, when we hear kink, we think of like 50 Shades of Grey and cheesy articles in Cosmo. We are not celebrating heteronormative, watered down 50 Shades version of kinky at Pride. Oh, no, no. We are celebrating the history and contributions of the leather community. Leather-identified people were founders and huge contributors in what was once called the gay liberation movement. Part 4. Part 4 of why kink should be at Pride. So when we're celebrating the leather community, we're celebrating the community. Leather is about love, connection, and a fierce commitment to be in service to those in your community. Leather people were also among the founders of the LGBTQ movement as we know it today. But you might remember in the last video, I said the leather community was a subset of the BDSM community, not the LGBTQIA community, so what's going on? Here's where the history comes in. Leather originated with gay men. When we're done here, I want you to Google Chuck Renslow. Gay icon from Chicago, very good friend of my uncle's who was also a gay leatherman. Chuck Renslow founded the Leather Archives and Museum in Chicago, which is a repository of important gay history. He was also the founder of International Mr. Leather, which is a big deal. He also opened the very first gay leather bar in the United States called the Gold Coast in the 1960s in Chicago. Pivotal gay icon and a contributor to the very first Pride parades. Part 5. Why kink belongs at Pride, Part 5. So during the 1970s and the very early 80s, the gay leather community was booming. They were no longer being raided and arrested for just going out to bars. I mean, homophobia was still rampant. It was awful. But in the off hours, they had their community. That changed with the AIDS crisis. I was in middle school and high school when the AIDS crisis hit. I also interviewed my uncle for episode 130 of American Sex Podcast. And through tears, he talked about how horrible it was. He was also one of our founding leather fathers and a really popular guy, and he lost like all of his friends but 2. AIDS decimated the leather community. The men in the community received support from other queers, leather dykes, I probably can't say it, even straight allies. And that's how the leather community opened up to include people other than cis men. And I did not do this history justice. You got a very tip of the iceberg. There is so much there. Kink, and when we say kink, we really mean leather. And when we say leather, we mean the community and the history belongs at Pride. But there's more. Part 6. Belongs at Pride Part 6. If all this history is new to you, please do more research. Go to leatherarchives.org or Google leather and gay liberation or leather and the AIDS crisis. When you see our leather family up there on the float with their title slashes and their puppy hoods and their harnesses, that's not sexual. That's clothing. They're not naked. And no one's saying anything else about the other people in the parade in the little booty shorts. Are there sometimes bad actors that make bad judgment at Pride? Yeah, I've seen a few too many blowies in the alley around the corner from the parade route. But I've seen that a lot more amongst non-leather people. The kink community is not to blame for drunk people with bad judgment. We don't like them either. People shouldn't be doing scenes at Pride or having sex. We agree. But why is the kink community to blame for everybody's bad behavior at Pride? Maybe because of your hang-ups and misconceptions about the kink community? Kink and leather is not inherently about sex. Sure, those communities and identities sometimes involve sex, but it's not required. Just like Pride doesn't mean sex. However, some people that are LGBTQ+ sometimes have sex, but in private, not at the parade. All of this is kink stigma. Our thoughts on this. I see a lot of people hung up, especially about people in puppy gear. They're like, you're wearing this stuff, you're doing a scene, that's sex. Let's talk about drag. It's cool now. RuPaul's Drag Race, drag queens reading at the library to toddlers. But it wasn't always. Go back a few decades. You know what the average person said about a drag queen? That's some kinky, perverted sex stuff. They're dressing like women, do it in the butt. What perverts. Meanwhile, they're like, this isn't a sex thing. I'm not being a pervert. I'm capable of being a pervert, but I'm not doing it when I'm in drag. And people at the time thought that because there was still a lot of stigma and people didn't really get it. But once drag queens got on TV and started becoming like straight people's cute little mascots, it was fine. So when you look at the people at Pup Gear at Kink, like, oh, they're perverts, they're doing sex things. Meanwhile, they're like, this isn't a sex thing at all. It's kind of like a cross between cosplay and, puppy drag. Dressing in gear is not inherently sexual. You're making it sexual with your false assumptions.